there are lessons to be learned in losses, like we were talking about earlier. You know, when you're going through a difficult time or you've had a difficult time and then you share what you learned through that period, there's a lot of strength in that for other people.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, who will avoid card games at all costs, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 44 of the Running for Real podcast. We are closing in on the end of January now. That means that I am going to be probably sitting, not doing very much right now, as my baby should be kind of arriving sometime soon. If she hasn't already, hopefully not. Hopefully she's waiting until the time she needs to come out. But who knows? I am recording these ahead of time. Now, last week we had Camille Herron on the show. She's the world record holder by over an hour for the 100-mile record. She is not just an incredible athlete, but also really smart. And she gave us lots of insight into what she'd learned in her career, particularly in her work, her intellectual work on bone recovery after injuries, which is rather applicable to us as runners. Now, today is a bit of a different one. This guest is not a runner in the sense you usually think of runners. He does run almost every day. He's run marathons and half marathons, but he's primarily a Muay Thai fighter. However, I took a bit of a risk with this one, bringing someone on who was, not your typical runner, because I think Richie is doing such wonderful things for this world to bring about positivity and get people away from dangerous behaviors. Now, this episode with Richie Hardcore, yes, that is his name, is very real. And you might hear some things that might be a little bit upsetting for some people, but there's also so much great advice in here for how to deal with the pressure of friends and family who might not want you to not run or skip things, go to party, do some things that aren't particularly good for your health. So hopefully this advice he gives will be helpful for you. I know that I have struggled with kind of knowing what to say in the past, and I'm sure you're going to find it helpful too. So if you're ready to meet Richie, after a word from our sponsors, we'll be right to it. You know when you're out there running and you're really struggling and you do listen to music just to kind of help get you through? The quality of the headphones really makes such a huge difference. And V, in addition to being a great running buddy and training partner, has amazing sound. Make sure you check it out at getv.com/running for real. New year, new you. Well, kind of. By now, most of us know that big New Year's resolutions really don't stick most of the time. But small ones that we can actually stick to, they will make a heck of a difference. Just like adding Body Health Perfect Amino to your routine made a big difference for me, and it could to you too. Richie, thank you so much for being here today on this rather unique, but I'm really excited for it, episode of the Running for Real podcast. Thanks so much for your time and for being here today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for being interested in talking.
Oh no, this is great. And I can already tell that you're one of those people that I feel like anyone could talk to and just be comfortable and, relaxed and just have a good conversation. So I'm looking forward to this. But I mentioned initially that this is a unique episode. So for my listeners, this is the Running for a podcast. Richie does run, which we're going to talk about a little bit in a minute. But primarily, you do Muay Thai and boxing. You're also a radio host, public speaker, and one thing we're going to go into a bit later, you're trying to prevent people from doing drugs and alcohol, and you're an advocate for social and political change, which, all wonderful things, all good things that we need more of in this world. But as this is a running podcast, I want to begin with that. So firstly, I know the answer, how often you run, but maybe if you could tell the listeners what your running does involve, and then would you class yourself as a runner or would you not? I'm just curious about that one.
I definitely class myself as a runner.
Okay.
I've run regularly for maybe coming up 20 years as part of my Muay Thai training. It was really essential. We used to run when you train in Thailand. You run twice a day. So you run morning before you do Muay Thai, and then you run in the afternoon before doing Muay Thai. And just that sort of habit just sort of really stuck with me for feeling really good. When things were going, badly in life, or I was stressed out in life, going for a run was one of the simplest things that I could do to feel better. And that's something that I advocate for, through my different, public channels. I don't know. I enjoy the meditative aspect of running.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find it really kind of relaxes me. Obviously there's all the feel good chemicals that get released when you run, but it's just nice to be alone with your thoughts but not ruminating in a negative sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of you're moving through your problems.
I think a lot of people understand that.
Yeah, I know that's not like the most exciting analogy that I've ever come up with, but
so you meet with a group in the mornings. You and I have both. You said to me just a few minutes ago that you've run 7 half marathons and 1 marathon. So definitely consider you should be classed in the runner category. But as you mentioned, you do train with a group. You do run with a group. What do you, as someone who isn't primarily running as your sport of choice, as you have the way you look at yourself, do you find it difficult to get new people into running, or do you kind of say them as, trust me, like, come over to this side, it's not as bad as you think? I'm just curious, like, when it comes, you said it's such a positive influence on you, but does that mean you still have trouble getting other people to try it? Or do they kind of say, well, you know what, he's a Muay Thai and boxing guy and he's enjoying running, then maybe I can enjoy running too?
Well, we run this running group every Monday. A good friend of mine, she's a competitive runner, so she was aiming for the Olympics this year, and she's one of she's one of New Zealand's best runners, and we're both enamored with running. Like she's all she does is run. But yeah, we do find it kind of difficult to get people to like stick to it. I think a lot of people think that after their first run they're going to miraculously be transformed, but it's actually. It's actually, whether it's physically, like they want to lose some weight, or whether it's like emotionally, they're going to suddenly have no problems anymore, because we talk about it in such glowing terms. And then they'll come for a run and then they'll be like, that's a little bit hard. And then you might not come back, So it's about how do you get people to trust the process, as it were. You know what I mean? I think it's like anything. People focus so much on the end result rather than the whole journey being a positive. So, yeah. So I get a lot of my fighters running. Like it's an integral part of training, and then a lot of them start incorporating it into their training routine, as a Muay Thai coach, and then they'll stick with it because they've seen how it works. Whereas if it's someone who might not have a sporting element, then I find that can be a little bit harder, because you're trying to. It's trying to encourage them to just stick with it, and then you'll feel the magic of running,
Yeah, for sure. And when it comes to that group, maybe for new people or just for runners listening who maybe have been considering joining a group, but I don't want to be the slowest one out there. Everyone runs at different speeds. So what have you noticed being part of a group? Everyone is still out there together. And it doesn't matter kind of what speed you're going at. So what would you like to say to people who are maybe umming and ahhing about a group? And if you, as someone who, you said you get your fighters to run, if they can all do it, and obviously that's not their primary thing, then why should everyone consider joining a group if it is going to help you, stay committed and kind of make it more fun?
Yeah, well, so our group is called One Step Is All It Takes, which we just call One Step. And I think that's the easiest thing to think, is that if you just start, everything else will fall out of that. And running with a group of people who already know how to run and love running makes it that much easier. So for all the people who've come once and never turned up, there are a few people who have stuck with it, and they are so transformed. And the fact that they've been running with people who have given them, technical advice on how to run, dietary advice on what to do for energy, or for weight loss, or talk to people about footwear, all that sort of stuff is really, it's helped them in that process, because sometimes it's like with anything new, when you start out, often you're a little unsure, but when you've got a group of really experienced people or even just casual runners around you, it just makes the whole process that much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that definitely does. And I'm just, kind of wanting to lead on from that. You clearly, throughout everything I've seen on you and just talking to you in the few minutes, you love to meet new people, love to connect with others. I thought maybe you would have some, thoughts on why that's so powerful, having that social connection with others in a life where we want to be happy and we want to kind of live, an enriched, happy life, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, social connection is vital for just our mental health and our emotional health. And yet we live in a world which is increasingly isolating us, like whether it's socioeconomically because you can't afford to live in the neighborhood you grew up in anymore and you've got to move away from all your friends, or because we are all addicted to our cell phones. I'm definitely guilty of that. And you're out at dinner and you pick up your phone and you're like, oh, I got 50 likes on Instagram. And then you stop connecting to the actual people around you. Or we work long hours and we don't see our loved ones. Like we're increasingly not forced, but it's increasingly the modern world divorces us from one another. And then when you strap on a pair of running shoes or go to do any sort of exercise, to be honest, and do that with other people, it's a really nice way to connect meaningfully. And you get a whole bunch of feel good, serotonin and endorphins get released, all those feel good chemicals, and you're doing that with other people, and it can become like a really nice positive way to bond. Yeah, because quite often our socialization in the West is we bond over alcohol or with drugs. Like the go-to question in New Zealand, at least, is, do you want to catch up for a drink?
Same in England.
In England, right? So which is, it's not inherently bad, but when it's the go-to question, it does make me wonder, why can't we socialize without a substance which is proven to cause cancer and proven to be involved in, mental health issues and violence and car accidents? And why not running or yoga or anything like that, which is more meaningful? Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, so social connection's vital. If we feel lonely and we feel isolated and we feel like we've got no one to talk to, we're not going to live optimally. And in New Zealand, we have a massive suicide problem. It's one of our leading causes of death. 600, we're a small country. So I think the number is 606 people committed suicide in New Zealand last year, which is twice as many as died in car accidents. Really? And a lot of that is to do with the fact that people feel like they've got nowhere to go. So how do we get people connecting? Well, organized exercise or sport is a great way to do that.
Yeah, so true. Thank you for bringing that up. And you did say about going out for a drink, and I said England is the same. Now, I do live in the US, and that isn't, people don't say let's go for a drink, but their alcohol is quite often involved in kind of socialization, and it's still, the same kind of issue here. Although I would say in my experience, running in America maybe has a little bit more, running is more socially accepted than I noticed back home, but it seems to be things are changing. But what about for someone who, maybe has moved to a new place or is kind of introverted and shy and doesn't, does feel nervous about meeting new people? Any thoughts on kind of that situation, especially when you're in a place where it kind of feels like everyone knows each other, everyone's been friends for many years?
Yeah, that is hard. Like I travel a lot, for a few months at a time. Here and there, I'll get out of little old New Zealand and go see the world. Or, I've moved to Australia, which isn't too dissimilar to New Zealand culturally. But moving to any other country, you don't have the friends that you can just go around to their house and sit on their couch and talk nonsense with, right? So I understand why the idea of going out for a drink after work, because that's a workplace culture, is a normal thing. Or I understand why you might want to use drugs to loosen up socially if you're introverted. For me personally, and without trying to sound judgmental or anything, because, a lot of people use drugs and drink non-problematically, like most people, but a significant number of people, unfortunately, do have problems that emerge from substance use.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you start relying on alcohol or drugs to be either your key point of socialization or what's going to make you confident or what's going to relax you, then that's potentially prone to becoming an issue.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people get into drinking and drugs in high school as a means of socialization, right? As you've mentioned. But if it starts off as your socialization from a young age, it very soon will become your coping mechanism when the going gets rough, because it makes you feel good. It turns off all the chatter in your head. It's just a nice, easy way of escapism. It's much easier to go out and do a few lines and have a few shots and make some bad life choices and make up with someone that was really fun 12 hours ago, but you don't remember the name anymore in the morning, and forget about everything, than it is to strap on your shoes and go running for a long distance and put in that work. That's a hard thing to do if you're not in the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we continue to glorify and glamorize in our movies and in our music as a culture. And people will start saying, well, drinking in New Zealand or drinking at the pub in England or whatever, that's just how it is. But I believe, well, in fact, it's more than I believe. I used to work for the Ministry of Health here when it came to reducing alcohol and drug harm. There are vested interests in promoting that message and that image. Advertising and product placement and sponsorship and social media placement of alcohol. Companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars on that to ensure that a good time is associated with whatever name brand of booze it is. Or, hip hop music artists, and I'm a huge consumer of hip hop and I love hip hop music, but they own liquor brands like Ciroc and make sure that that's what are mentioned in their songs or in their music videos. And it all continues to normalize this culture of intoxication being associated with fun and escapism, rather than teaching people that if you're shy or if you're not very confident or if you've got a broken heart, that there are actually other ways to get strong again and to be able to engage in the world in a meaningful way. You can see a therapist, or you can get involved in some sort of meditation practice, or you can go do a public speaking course, or you can go join a gym and join a group fitness class, or you can take up boxing, or you can come to a running group for free. And all those sorts of things take time and they take a bit of effort, and you don't always see the results straight away. But if you trust the process, then it's going to have much deeper results than going out and drinking and partying and having a good night. But will you have a good life if that's what you start doing when you're 20 and you're still doing it when you're 40?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then any advice for someone who, maybe isn't kind of going out often, or maybe even not at all, but is kind of getting, remarks from friends like, I'm not really feeling going out for a drink because, I've got a run in the morning, which is something that runners often have to deal with, especially if they're in training for,
Yes.
you've done a marathon yourself. Like, if you've got a long run the next day, that's not going to, going out and staying out late, even if you're not drinking, is not fun. But it can be very difficult to maneuver around, friends who are having a good time with their alcohol, or seemingly. But any thoughts on how to kind of skate around the issue of upsetting them while actually, doing what's best for you, especially when it comes to you feeling good in your running?
That was my whole 20s. So I used to run every morning in my 20s for my fitness, for my Muay Thai. So that was when I was winning. That's when I was fighting for national titles here in New Zealand for my Thai boxing. And I took my sport really seriously. And part of that was I was up 6 a.m. every day running. I'd alternate between track work for anaerobic fitness and, distance for weight loss and aerobic fitness. And It was socially isolating, to be honest with you. My partner at the time, she was a big drinker, and that would often set us apart because I'd be like, well, I've got to get up at 5:30 to go running, and you're going to be out all night. So that it is actually a difficult thing to circumnavigate. I think communication, like any relationship, whether it's with your friends or with your your boyfriend or your girlfriend, is really the key to that, and helping people understand that this is such an important part of your life, and that's what you do to have fun and be well, that perhaps they could, I don't know, consider socializing in a different manner. Or you can talk about, well, look, we'll go out for a drink after my race, like sorts of compromises and negotiations are an important part of any sort of healthy relationship.
Yeah.
If you just get grumpy and you just get mad and like yell at people and tell them to turn the music off, they're probably just going to think that like you're a horrible grumpy person and I don't want to hang out with you anymore. Although, to be fair, you do start, as I've noticed this, is that as you get older, as you come through your 20s and move into your 30s, you do start gravitating towards people whose lives are perhaps a little bit more in line with your own, or your values are a little bit more, in sync. And then, and some of that does mean shedding old relationships. You just grow in different directions. So if the people that you used to drink with in high school are still doing that in the workplace, as they become adults, and you've moved into becoming a runner or an athlete, and then it's a natural progression that you're going to want to hang out with other people who understand the importance of going early, getting a good night's sleep so you can wake up and have a great run in the morning. I think nothing makes you feel lonelier than being in a room full of people who don't understand you.
Yes.
When you constantly have to explain why it's so important to be healthy while people are shoveling Big Macs down their face and swilling a pint back, you can feel like there's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm sure most people listening have kind of experienced that to some degree. I mean, I know have had friends, not meaning any harm, but make comments like that, and it can be difficult to find a way around. And just to take that one step further, you also don't eat meat. And, I'm sure that gives you another whole level of things that people can kind of comment on and make remarks. But how do you find the balance between, eating well, thinking about your future, looking after your body, and not causing a fuss for loved ones or bringing up things that are only going to cause arguments? Because I know a lot of our listeners are going to be the kind of people who, don't want to make waves, don't want to upset people. So what's your best advice based on the way that you live your life? No alcohol, no drugs, no meat. How do you kind of get around those things?
Yeah, you're always going to make waves. Like I haven't drunk for 10 years, and even before I quit, like publicly, I didn't drink much. So I've always been the odd one out in that regard. And I've been a vegetarian for 18 years. So I was an early adopter, before like
before it became cool.
Cool, yeah. No, but yeah, before, veganism is on the up now. It's great. I'm stoked for the environment, I'm stoked for the animals. But it is a new trend, and that's really great to see. It is always going to be confronting, though, to be honest. People always want to understand why someone is so different to what the mainstream is. People don't know how to accept difference. And I believe that when you take a stance like that, when you quit drinking and you become really health focused in what you eat, and you take so I'm a vegetarian for ethical reasons. Like I don't believe in I don't want to kill things. And the health benefits for me are just an aside of that. But I believe that you become a mirror for people around you when you take strong value-based stances like that. And people don't always like what they see, and it's much easier to pull the crab climbing out of the pot down back into the pot than try and climb with it. If you're trying to quit, if you quit drinking and you go out, I mean, I still go out. I still socialize, like I go to concerts and, go to parties and I live a normal life. I just don't fill my body with poison to do it. And when you go out, people who are like messed up on alcohol and drugs, they often are like, kind of see how, you look stupid when you're overly intoxicated, And I've been overly intoxicated, man. I've done some stupid shit in my late teens and early 20s, like when I was figuring myself out. And people don't. It's confronting to be around that, I think. But for me, I'm fortunate in that my friends have come to respect me. And I did do a lot of that shitting, of social groups, like when I came through my 20s and into my early 30s, I kind of did grow apart from a bunch of people and started hanging out with a new set of people who still drank and used drugs, but were totally understanding of the fact that it's cool that I didn't. They didn't want to hassle me or wind me up like perhaps old people in my world had. And I think, a lot of people kind of will message you late at night on Facebook and be like, yo, man, like, where do I get some help for my drinking, or where do I get some help for my drugs? Because I'm kind of starting to see that it's a bit of a problem right now. And when you have pathways to a different way of living, and you're humble about it and you're quiet about it, but people know they can lean on you if they need some advice, I think that's a really powerful way of creating change.
Yeah.
Because when I was in my 20s, because I was I did used to be pretty angry about substance use and drug use, because I've been hurt emotionally a lot by other people's addiction growing up. And so I was always like pretty staunch, and I'd wear T-shirts like "Kill your local drug dealer" or "Cancer cures smoking," things like that, because I was so, I don't know, as defensive in my sobriety, as it were,
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that problematic substance use is just a symptom for something else. If you've got some sort of mental health issue, or you've been through some sort of trauma, or you're deeply insecure, then substances are almost a rational way to deal with that. Why wouldn't you do something that makes you feel good and so easy? No,
I think that's good to mention, and it is something that is more common than we realize, and something that I think everything you just said there kind of touched on probably all the listeners we have, the people who are trying to do the right thing and maybe get like little glimmers of other people in their lives wanting to kind of learn from and be more like them, but it can be difficult at times to kind of refrain from giving in or getting defensive, like you said you did, in your earlier years. And I think it was just good for you to mention that, just for anyone, especially as this being a January thing, that's often when people are trying to make changes. So like you said, surround yourself with people who are going to be in the same kind of lifestyle as you, but don't completely cut off from the other people who, maybe will come over to you, like you said, being a good example of a life they want to live. And if you surround yourself by people that are similar to you in lifestyle, I think that will only help. So thank you for kind of explaining that. I think that was good for the listeners to hear.
Can I jump in on that for 1 second?
Yeah.
I think also my friends who continue to use drugs and drink and, eat degustation meat-based meals, they help me too. They've helped me become a more open-minded, compassionate person. Because when I was in my 20s and I was so steadfast in my beliefs and my values that I was judgmental and unkind, and it's no fun walking around that angry all the time. And actually humans are amazing because there's such diversity in our lived experience as human beings, So I think my friends have shown me that you can use drugs and drink and still be a great dad, and still run your job, and still live your life, and still be a great athlete, to be honest. Have helped me come to find a peace in myself with the fact that there is this range of experience, and that I don't have to shut out everyone who's different to me I just have to know how to navigate and communicate and sometimes live and let live and not try and prove that my way is the right way. So I think it's a two-way street.
Okay.
So for as much as people are like, yo, man, like I'm drinking a bit much, or how do I get fit, or how do I get healthy? Sometimes my friends can help me have a deeper understanding of your experience too.
Yeah, no, I think that's good to mention. And I too have also been kind of judgmental for people, kind of my way is right, your way is wrong, what you're doing is wrong. I don't want to, looking down at people. And I think I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I hadn't thought about that in this interview, but definitely worth mentioning that we need to kind of keep our minds open with the way that we look at other people and kind of judge them as well, especially if they are going through something that they're struggling with. So to be more compassionate. Okay, so I want to switch gears slightly. Another thing you do with your, traveling the world sometimes to give motivational talks. You are known as an inspiration and kind of a game changer in our world. But you have a lot of good stuff to say about, the bad things that happen to us and why they are actually good things, especially they become really important to our future and becoming who we are. So maybe you could kind of explain, as most people do tend to struggle to understand, especially when you're in it, why these bad things that are happening to us, like maybe someone listening is injured, or maybe, things just keep going wrong, why these are actually going to be good things in the long run.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I do public speaking here in New Zealand. I talk about mental health, amongst other things. And to answer your question directly, the easiest thing for me to do is use an analogy from fighting, Mm-hmm. It's kind of how it's like fighting is like the best analogy I can ever come up with for pretty much any situation. So I always say that when you fight, you either win or you learn. There's never a loss, because whenever you don't get your hand raised into the fight, you obviously haven't done something as well as the other person. Mm-hmm. So it allows you to come and explore what the gaps in your game are and how to strengthen yourself for the next time you are, in the ring or in the cage, as it may be. If you're getting kicked in the leg a lot and you can't walk, then you have to go and figure out how to defend leg kicks, or,
Or I guess, can I just pause for a runner, maybe then that is, if you don't run to your potential, you don't get the result that you think you deserve or the result that you wanted, what can you go back and change yourself for the next time? So, sorry, continue.
Yeah, exactly. Or I don't know, like, maybe you go for a run and then you have like a real bad cramp come on, or you hit the wall because you didn't carbo load properly, or you didn't pack the right gels, or you're underhydrated, or do you know what I mean? Like, and you'll find a gap in your game that'll allow you to strengthen it and do it better next time. And so I think it's the same with life. If you are constantly in a cycle of dramatic, tumultuous, romantic relationships, you need to figure out what it is in you that brings those into your orbit. What is your childhood conditioning? Why are you attracted to a particular sort of person that it's all like fireworks and great sex and fancy dinners and, oh my God, we're going to get married in 3 months, to tears and sad memes on Instagram, at 3 a.m. because this relationship's ended disastrously. And then you get a little bit emotionally healed, and then the next relationship's the same, and the next relationship's the same. You're obviously not looking at what is in you that you need to figure out. And that takes some time, and I believe it probably does take a little bit of external perspective from either a friend or friends, or, a psychologist or a therapist, some books by Brene Brown,
yes.
But I think the difficulties in life are our best teachers. If you are having a tough time at work and you're suddenly not happy there, you need to figure out, well, what is it that I actually want to be doing for the biggest percentage of my day? Why am I continuing to stay in this workplace when I'm suddenly realize that it's not fulfilling me or serving me anymore? There's more to life than a steady paycheck. And I'm not discounting the importance of a steady paycheck, But to go to work every day with that gnawing feeling in your stomach that there's more to your existence in this is like the worst thing ever. That's like, I don't know. It's like hastening death.
No. I think that's true, and it can be difficult to kind of really admit that to yourself. But if you are, like you said, getting that feeling in the pit of your stomach that something needs to change, then I was hoping this episode was going to be a good reminder that things don't have to be as they seem. And then if someone listening is a runner and they do keep ending up injured or things keep going wrong. I'm always talking to my audience about balance and how, if you get too obsessed and kind of focused on an outcome, focused on, that immediate gratification that we talked about earlier, that can kind of lead to disaster because yes, you might be thinking, oh, I'm doing everything right. Why is this happening to me now? What gaps do I have in my life? Well, I don't have any because I've done everything I can to be the best runner I can be, and it's still going wrong. What would you say to that, just in a situation that runners running is so important to them, almost a bit too important, and it's kind of becoming difficult when things do keep going wrong?
Yeah, I think a lot of athletes, a lot of runners can lose their perspective that there is a life outside of what you're doing here and now. And when you become single focused, yes, you can be the best at what you're doing, but hey, maybe you've had the best training and your nutrition's amazing and everything's just, you're in that flow state.
Uh-huh.
But then you step off a curve and you break your ankle, and you've sacrificed everything, you have nothing left around you, then that's going to be an incredibly difficult time. If you've sacrificed your personal relationships and anything that's not running focused, I think you can set yourself up for a really deep, emotional, dark place if you've got that. Do you know what I mean? I'm not trying to say don't have a one-track mind, because I think sometimes being that driven is, that's how you get great, like that's how you get great. But at the same time, do try and have, I don't know, what am I trying to say? Don't have a safety net, because you don't want to plan to fail, but also at the same time be aware that there is a life outside of your running, or life outside of what it is you're focusing on.
No, I think that is good to mention, and kind of maybe this will help get your words together in the way that I know you want to get them across. But you and I have talked before the interview about being very real and honest. You share your struggles on Instagram, on social media. I think this is amplified because we do live in this world, like we mentioned at the beginning, where we are addicted to our phones, or we see these highlight reels of people's lives through social media. So how can will sharing help if you are kind of sharing some struggles? And what would you like to say about people who do feel like, I'm always injured and everything is going right for them. My world is falling apart and everyone else's life just seems to be going great.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, so, social media is not real. I mean, it is real in that quite often it is people's lived and true experiences. But like you've said, a lot of people just show the good stuff.
Yeah.
What I've found is that when I've been honest about the fact that I'm experiencing depression, or I'm really sad, or my insomnia is messed up because my anxiety is killing me, people get in touch, man. People from all around the world will get in touch with you and be like, hey, I saw what you posted. Are you okay? Or a close friend will be like, bro, what's going on? Like, all you post is sad stuff on social media at the moment. Are you okay? Or they'll be like, snap out of it if they don't have a nuanced language. But people will reach out. When you put out authentic experiences or states of being, whether it's happy or sad, something will come back. If you just put this polished, curated, artificial presentation of your life through social media, I'm not entirely sure what's going to come back to you. I mean, I tell you what you will get: good product endorsements. but if you're looking at like a deeper experience of things, I think being honest about your lows as much as your highs can be really rewarding.
Mm-hmm. And how do people find balance between that, sharing and saying I'm struggling, and not coming across as that kind of whining, everyone has seen that person on Facebook or something who just, posts every few hours, just it seems like complaining. How do you find that balance between sharing and not being kind of what did they say, like first world problems kind of person?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so there's a difference between saying I'm depressed or I'm suffering from depression or I'm grieving a loss of a relationship and saying I can never find a parking space. This place sucks. I hate my life, like oh it's so my turmeric chai latte is so expensive today or they ran out of almond milk, like there's a difference between those sorts of first world problems. And I mean, it's actually funny you say you asked me that. Like, yes, and where I live right now, I'm fortunate enough to earn enough money to live in a good neighborhood in my city. And what's the public discourse right now is about is how annoying it is that the parking is getting disrupted while we put in bike lanes in our neighborhood, right? Like there are all these like op-ed pieces and the local gazette's all up in arms and the shop owners are having a little rant and it does put you out. There's roadworks and you blah blah blah. It is a little inconvenience. I was in Mexico 3 weeks ago and I met two people who told me how people close in their lives have been murdered, and it really put things in perspective for me. I mean, I like to think I'm generally, I mean, obviously we like to think best of ourselves, but I generally like to think I keep pretty grounded about problems. But, sometimes I will chuck something on Twitter like, oh, I got a parking ticket, bummer, But having those conversations with people who had lost people they love in such a violent manner and yet continue to live their day-to-day lives and thrive despite the obvious emotional pain that they will always, I guess, feel around that. Let me go, just be mindful what you talk about, like, am I going to bother spending time on the internet talking about, the bike lane being annoying?
Yeah.
Or am I going to use the internet as a real point of catharsis for me? Because I know that when I'm honest about the fact that I've gone through a breakup and I'm really lost and everything feels black at the moment, but I know that I'll get better in time if I go running and I see my therapist and I eat well, then that's going to help other people. Because that's what I found is that when I'm like, yo, man, I'm hurting right now, but this is what I'm doing, or this is what I did, people tend to be appreciative of that authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that there are lessons to be learned in our losses, like we were talking about earlier. When you're going through a difficult time or you've had a difficult time, and then you share what you learned through that period, there's a lot of strength in that for other people.
Yeah.
Like quite often I think if we talk about the difficult times and what we did to get through it and what we learned in that space in our lives, it can help other people avoid those same pitfalls.
Yes, so true.
Or can help them do it better. Every coach that you've ever had as a runner was probably a runner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're just sharing their experience with you about what they know works and what doesn't. Like sports is always evolving because every generation has the knowledge of the generation before it to build on. I think it's the same with our emotional lives and our mental health and circumnavigating this crazy thing that none of us ever asked for called life.
Yeah.
And if we, we share what happens in the bad times as much as the good times, it's powerful. So choose, if best as you can, to vent or be cathartic, or am I just having a little privileged moan because my soy latte was cold today? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, very true. And I think it was good that you differentiated between those, because it can be kind of tough to understand, but there is a definite difference. And I've most of the listeners know that I've always prided myself on being someone who shares to kind of help others, and it's great that you are too. And it's nice to hear that. For people listening, if you go check out Richie on his social media, you will see that there is a lot of that same kind of, here's what I'm struggling with, but not in a kind of whiny way, but in a kind of, I'm going to help people, here's the positive out of the other side way. So thank you.
I'm glad you see that. I mean,
Yeah, I definitely do.
that's how we connected. Like you follow me on social media and we're like, hey, you've got something to talk about. And
Yeah.
I'm really appreciative that came through. I'm glad I don't look like a Mona.
No, you definitely don't. Okay, well, we are just going to take a moment to thank our sponsors, and we'll be back with the Running for Real 4. Are you bored of the treadmill yet? I hated the treadmill and would have done almost anything to avoid it in the winter, but I also didn't have a V at that point, which would have made it so much better, especially with the treadmill capability that LifeBeam have been working so hard to perfect. It works seamlessly and will make the time go by a lot quicker. Well, I guess as quick as staring at a wall can go by, right? Even if you're able to get outside and do all your training, V is the perfect running buddy to keep with you when all those fair weather runners are taking their time off inside because it's too cold or too warm. Last month, I introduced you to V herself in these messages as the virtual trainer to keep you company, and she's so lifelike and real. I hope that kind of came across. If you want to enter to win your own V, go to getv.com/running for real, and you can enter to win. All 3 of our recent winners are loving getting to know her, and you can too. I really enjoy the clear quality of the headphones, and I think you will as well. Make sure you go to getv.com/running for real. Earlier on in the show, I mentioned that Body Health Perfect Amino made a big difference to me, and it really did, especially at this time of year when marathon training starts and things begin to get really tough. This is always a time we feel a bit overwhelmed as the accumulation of miles starts to catch up, especially when combined with those hard, heavy training runs. I found that taking Body Health Perfect Amino made my body recover from training that much quicker, meaning I could really attack those long runs and hard sessions. But it's not just for marathoners, it can be runners of any distance. If you get sore or fatigued during training, Body Health Perfect Amino will help you recover too, and here's why. Your body absorbs 99% of the amino acids in Body Health Perfect Amino, compared with only 48% in eggs and 32% in meat or fish. I would take them immediately after a run, and as they absorb within 25 minutes, that would give me a nice amount of time to stretch, another component of staying healthy. Then you can enjoy your post-race meal. Get 10% off at bodyhealth.com using coupon code TINA10. Okay, Richie, just 4 more questions for you, starting with a unique nutrition tip or something that you use, especially being a vegan or vegetarian. I'm not sure which of those you actually are. What you use maybe before a run or just in general that is a bit different.
I don't know if it's that different. Man, with running, I'd like to, I don't know about anything different. I'm trying to be
just
like.
Tell us then what you have. It doesn't have to be different.
Yeah. I was all like, I want to be like the guy who comes up with the amazing tip, but
like pickles and ice cream together in a sandwich or something.
Yeah. Man, I just love coconut water a lot when I'm rehydrating.
Yeah. No, that's a great one.
Yeah, coconut water is a great rehydrator, and I know that's pretty on trend right now. And for just prior to a run, for me, like home if I'm going for a long run, I just like toast with peanut butter and banana on it. Like
nothing wrong with that. We got plenty of toast and peanut butter with banana lovers on here, and myself being one of them. So that's all good. What about a running for real moment? A moment that only runners will understand that you've experienced?
I don't know, man. Like I use running a lot. I've used running a lot when I've been hurting emotionally.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, like I'm really happy now. But last year was really hard for me, for example. I got really hurt emotionally by someone else, and to wake up or go to bed and just feel like absolute, feel like dying, to be honest, at times, and then to wake up and have a little clarity after a good night's sleep or a not so good night's sleep, and put on my shoes and put on my favorite sounds and go for a run, and then feel that sadness and that hurt lift, even if it's just for a moment, and then like find yourself singing along and your pace picks up and you jump over a sign because you just feel like real excited all of a sudden. Like that's the best for me, like running is so life affirming regardless of your circumstance, or regardless of either running because you're training for the Olympics or you're training for a kickboxing fight, or because you just needs something that makes sense in a world that often doesn't. Like, I think that's the best thing about running for me is that it can lift you. If you're sad, it can lift you, and if you're happier, it'll make you happier. You know?
No, I think that's great, and that I think almost everyone will definitely understand that and how helpful running can be, especially when things are hard. So thank you. That is a good one. What about a high moment in your running experience?
I ran my first marathon this year. I have to say that's a high moment.
Yeah.
I was really proud of myself. Like I got a 3:51.
Wow, that's great.
Thanks. At the Gold Coast Marathon. And
I was going to do that one originally. That's so funny.
It's beautiful up there. Like it's, I flew over there to do it. I live in New Zealand. And now I'm like, I want to do one marathon a year in a different country. Like that's my goal till I get old and I die.
Great goal. Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Cool. That's really good. And finally, what do you tell yourself when you're standing on the start line, maybe before that marathon or one of your halves? What do you say to yourself?
Nothing's going to be harder than fighting. And like no one's trying to knock me out or hurt me.
That's true. Like, not getting a punch to the face.
Or a knee or a headbutt. So, and also, I say that nothing's going to be harder than that. And also, I'm fortunate. I'm so lucky to be here about to run. Like, I'm so grateful that I can strap on some shoes and run because so many people can't. A lot of people are crippled or paraplegic or they haven't been introduced to the joy of running. And here I am. And my life has led me to this moment now and be grateful. And maybe you won't get a great time and maybe you will and you're only ever competing against yourself. But you're so fortunate to be able to do this. I'm really appreciative of the fact that I can run, I'm so grateful.
That. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. And finally, I ask my guests to send me a photo of them in a power pose, something you would do, at the start of a race or before a fight or something like that, where you are standing in a pose that brings you confidence. Will you send us your power pose?
Power pose. Sure, of course I will send you a power pose. With my pleasure.
Great, thank you. Okay, Richie, how can people find out more about you if they are interested in kind of following your journey in the future?
So all my social media handles are just Richie Hardcore, RICHIE, no T in Richie, and Hardcore, HAIDCORE. That's me on Instagram and Twitter, and I got a public Facebook page under the same name. I've got an outdated website which needs updating, obviously, and that's just richiehardcore.co.nz. Yeah, I do need to update that actually. I did this. Yeah. So anyway, that's progress. And
well, people can still go. It still works.
It still works. Yeah, it still works. And it's not, it's not like an eyesore or anything. It just, you can email me there as well. Inquiries at richiehardcore.co.nz. And I always try and get back to you. It's just me. I might take a few days to get back to you, but I always email people back whether they just want to say hello or they want some advice or they want to do a work related thing. Like I will get back to you.
Great. Okay, Richie, well, thank you so much. This was really cool to learn from you and just kind of get some insights into living a more positive and fulfilled life. So thanks for sharing your thoughts and wish you the best of luck in the future.
Hey, thank you. I hope there's something worthwhile for your listeners in it. I appreciate the time.
I told you this one was a little bit of a different take, but around this time of year, we're really trying to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be. And I loved learning from Richie and just his attitude towards life. So I hope you did too. You can find a link to everything we talked about today in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 44. Now, on that note, another thing that is in the show notes is I have just released and launched these new podcast series that I was working so hard at in November and December, recording 2 to 4 podcast episodes a day to get these ready for you. Now, what I've done is broken down the podcast into various series. So these are marathon training, nutrition, mental, running through pregnancy and postpartum, coming back from injury, And there is one more. I cannot think for the life of me what it is. For beginners, obviously, that is a good one. Running for absolute first-time beginners. So I broke it down into those categories. And from there, I've given you 5+ hours, 6 to 8 episodes with some of the best-known guests in the running industry. You know, Hal Higdon, Jenny Hadfield, Elise Kopecky, Jay DeSherry. That's just to mention a few. I have interviews with those guests on specific topics. And as I mentioned, those are broken down into the categories. You get 5+ hours plus a helpful guide from those guests. And you can find out more about those by going to tinamuir.com/series or clicking on the link in the show notes for this episode. Now, make sure you go check that out. And I also want to remind you, if you haven't joined the Running for Real Superstars group yet on Facebook, definitely should check that out. It's free. You'll love it. It is unlike any other group you will ever see. Just so positive and supportive. Exactly the kind of place we all need to be. So one more link to give you for this episode. Again, all of these links will be in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 44. But the specific one for that one is tinamuir.com/community. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this episode. On to the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.